Hey, before we jump into the message today, I just want to talk about what happened yesterday with the attempted assassination on former President Trump. And I've just been feeling like I need to call us to something, challenge us in this area, because what I really feel like it's reflective of is how contentious, from a political point of view, things are in our nation. And I think anytime a moment in history happens, followers of Jesus are called to do two things: to examine themselves personally, and then to understand the role we play. How are we the solution out in the world? And so I think as we're approaching this fall, and obviously now it has started, we are on full tilt. And as we are approaching this fall, if you can not have a conversation with somebody about a polarizing topic, systemic racism, gun control, abortion, immigration, if you cannot have a conversation with someone who does not share your point of view and not in real time think less of that person, or to feel like you cannot relate to that person or have any type of connection with that person, then guys, we're part of the problem. We're part of the problem. And so we must examine our hearts. This is what James was talking about with the sin of partiality. If you treat somebody, if your attitude and actions toward another person are based on a system that is not the nature of God in His revealed word, then it is the sin of partiality. And we are guilty. And we must confess that. We got to own it and work towards bridge building. So that's number one. I think we have to examine our own hearts. And then number two is we have to be the solution. We got to build bridges. And I think the most powerful way that we build bridges is through curious conversations, is being able to enter into dialogue with people that are not like us, that do not share our point of view, and understand that there are experiences, there are values, and there are attachments that are driving those opinions. Your opinions, you did not make your opinions. Your opinions found you. Your experiences, your values, and your attachments are what are behind all of your opinions in this world. And so for you to be able to be curious, to go on a treasure hunt, to understand that every human being is a mystery, not a puzzle to solve, but a mystery to understand, will do a lot and allow us to be bridge builders in a world and a culture that just wants to build bigger and higher walls. Okay? No pun intended. All right? Can I just call you to that? Can I allow this cultural moment, this moment of history that we will talk about for decades, to actually cause us to maybe grow and examine and actually be a part of the solution in our country? We go with that? Okay, all right, let's go to the book of James, shall we? James chapter 3, and we're going to be in verse 1. We've made it into chapter 3. We are continuing our series, True Religion, a journey through the book of James, spending the whole summer going through the book of James. The book of James is like a field guide for the Christian life. It is not necessarily a presentation of the gospel, but it is a call and instruction guide on how to live as faithful followers of Jesus. It is not a treatise on how to be saved, although it talks about that, but more so, how do we live as saved people? The book can be summed up in one phrase: to be doers of the word, not simply hearers of the word. And we are beginning chapter 3 this morning. When James, he's going after our mouth. He's going after our mouth. Now, many of you should become teachers, my brothers, for you know that we who teach will be judged with greater strictness. For we all stumble in many ways, and if anyone does not stumble in what he says, he is a perfect man, able also to bridle his whole body. If we put bits into the mouths of horses so that they can obey us, we guide their whole bodies as well. Look at the ships also. Though they are so large and are driven by strong winds, they are guided by a very small rudder, wherever the will of the pilot directs. So also the tongue is a small member, yet it boasts of great things. How great a forest is set ablaze by such a small fire. The tongue is a fire, a world of unrighteousness. The tongue is set among our members, staining the whole body, setting on fire the entire course of life, and set on fire by hell. Whew. Come on, James. For every kind of beast and bird, of reptile and sea creature can be tamed and has been tamed by mankind, but no human being can tame the tongue. It is a restless evil full of deadly poison. With it we bless our Lord and Father, and with it we curse people who are made in the likeness of God. From the same mouth come blessing and cursing, my brothers. These things ought not to be so. Does a spring pour forth from the same opening both fresh and salt water? Can a fig tree, my brothers, bear olives, or a grapevine produce figs? Neither can a salt pond yield fresh water. This last week, and just kind of preparing for this message, I stumbled upon this quote, and it's just been wrecking me since I heard it. It's from Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel. He says this: words create worlds. Words create worlds. And as followers of Jesus, we understand this to be true. I mean, you just go to page 1 of the Bible. The first few words are what? God said. And what happened? The world was created. God actually spoke. He didn't use his hands. He didn't gather matter until he created you and I. But God literally created the world that we live in, the universe that our earth sits in. He spoke it into existence. We should have a healthy, sobering understanding of words. But it's not even in creation. You look at the book of Proverbs. This blew my mind this last week. Did you know that the book of Proverbs addresses our speech more than any other topic? More than money, more than relationships, more than sex? It addresses the words that are coming out of our mouths. It is a topic that nearly every prophet in the Old Testament addressed, and we find it addressed all throughout the New Testament. We as followers of Jesus should understand from just a knowledge basis that words make worlds, that they are so powerful. But more than that, from just a lived experience, some of us, the way that we are and how we live, how we see the world, how we see ourselves, how we see God, has been shaped by the words that have been spoken to us. Some of us live in total distrust. Some of us live completely discouraged, insecure, inadequate, fearful. Much of the reason why is because of words that were or were not spoken to us throughout the course of our lives. Some of us approach this world with such security, such confidence, such assuredness because of the words that we heard growing up. We know this. Some of you, I could ask you, tell me about moments in your life where words that were spoken to you that either harmed or helped. Bang, you could have moment after moment after moment after moment. That those words shaped us, shaped who we are and how we are. Words make worlds. And this text in James reinforces that truth. It builds on everything that the Bible has already taught us about the significance of the tongue. and the words that come out of it. But more than that, James helps us see how our words can actually make better worlds. How we can be empowered through God's Spirit and through our words to actually partner with God to help this world, our world, and the worlds of those around us to actually be better. So the first thing James does to kind of drive this home is he wants us to have a good understanding of the tongue. He's like, man, let's just kind of get into this. And you hear it. Like, you hear it in his tone throughout the text. Like, you can discern, whoa. It's like James views the tongue as like radioactive. Anybody? You're just like, whew, get this thing out of my mouth. It's going to kill me. The first thing James drives in on is the testimony of the tongue. He says this in James 3:2. For we all stumble in many ways, and if anyone does not stumble in what he says, he is a perfect man, able also to bridle his whole body. So this idea of testimony, right? There's two key words here that we have to understand. The first is stumble, and the second is perfect. This idea of stumbling does not mean some fatal flaw. It doesn't seem it's not this mistake that you can't recover from. What James is addressing is this hindrance, this thing that kind of trips you up, this hindrance from you progressing spiritually, right? It's like this nagging struggle that exists in your life. The idea of perfection, often when you read about it in the New Testament, it is never really the idea of being perfect, like completely perfect. It is meant to convey this idea or this imagery of maturity. Being mature, being a mature follower of Jesus. And so the connection that James is trying to make is that our words, what we say, are an indication of how mature we are in the Lord. That it is, if you're ever wondering, okay, if there's ever a part of you that's like, I wonder if I'm a mature follower of Jesus, pay attention to your words. If there's ever a part of you, it's like, I wonder if so-and-so is a mature follower of Jesus. Think about what they say. Think about the words that come out of your mouth. Are they lewd? Are they suggestive? Are they crude? Are they dripping with innuendo? Are they sarcastic? Are they mean? Think about the words we say about others. Does our conversation, is it full of gossip? Do we breed discord? Do we actually bring division with our words? Do we tear people down when they're not around to feel better about ourselves? Do we lie? Do we exaggerate? Think about the words that are coming out of your mouth, because they are a direct indicator of how mature you are in the Lord. Do you complain? Do you get angry? Think about that. Because James is trying to help us see that our words are saying something about us. And this is totally in line with what Jesus talks about in Matthew 12. So think about this. Here's the words of Jesus in Matthew 12. Either make the tree good and its fruit good, or make the tree bad and its fruit bad, for the tree is known by its fruit. You brood of vipers, how can you speak good when you are evil? For out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. The good person out of his good treasure brings forth good, and the evil person out of his evil treasure brings forth evil. I tell you, on the day of judgment, people will give account for every careless word they speak. For by your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned. Jesus is making such a clear, he's like talking to these Pharisees, and he's like, man, you guys are walking around parading this idea of holiness, this idea of perfection. You're proclaiming, you're beating people over the head with this legalism, where you're telling people to follow every rule, and you're showing everyone how well you're following these laws and how good things are going for you. He's like, no. That is not what tells me whether or not you are mature. What tells me you are mature is the words that are coming out of your mouth. And what I hear is evil. It is evil. And there's no way that olives can come from a fig tree. There's no way that fresh water can come out of salt water. You hear James's language reflected by Jesus, or James is repeating Jesus' language. He's like, there is a massive indication, but it's not even just our level of maturity, that our words actually reveal what we worship. Our words actually reveal what is most important to us, what we desire, what we're after, what our faith is in. Just pay attention to your words, and they will tell you so much about you. About you. You could probably do an entire inventory of your life, your values, your experiences, your attachments, everything, just by paying attention to what you talk about, the consistency with which you talk about it. Okay, so there is a testimony. Hold on, I'm gonna fix this because it keeps popping. So if you're up in the sound booth, you can mute my mic for a quick second. Good now. It was popping me, and I was like, I can't handle this. I got to do something about it. You're probably all out there sitting there like, what is that? What's happening? Okay, so James addresses the testimony of the tongue. The next thing he talks about is the power of the tongue. James 3:3-4, if we put bits into the mouths of horses so that they obey us, we guide their whole bodies as well. Look at the ships also. Though they are so large and are driven by strong winds, they are guided by a very small rudder, wherever the will of the pilot directs. So James is trying to get us to understand the disproportionate influence that our tongue has. The disproportionate amount of power that our tongue possesses, not only in our lives, but in the lives of others. And he uses two examples, the idea of a horse and the idea of a boat, a bit and a rudder. Now, I don't ride horses. Okay, anybody here love horses? Anybody? You ride horses? Yeah, your hand should be up. Come on, raise it up. So, I rode a horse one time when I was a little kid, and it did not go so well. And for the rest of my life, I've always been like really scared of them. Like you would think that they're like a shark or something. But I'm just like, whoa, okay, everyone back away very slowly. The horse is out of the pen. It's going to attack us. But I've always lived with this. It's an irrational fear of getting kicked in the head by a horse. Anybody? Like sometimes I'll just watch YouTube videos of people getting kicked by horses. Just because I'm like, just to reinforce the fear. Just be like, okay, that's a good reason I'm scared of these things. Like they're just gonna run off, or do you remember can you remember Christopher Reeves, Superman? How he fell off of a horse. The horse bucked him off and he broke his neck and he was paralyzed forever. I'm like, my mom made me watch this 60 Minutes thing of him where he's breathing out of a tube. I'm like, I will never ride a horse, ever, ever. I'm not a horse guy, but what I've been told is that you put a small bit in their mouths. And in their mouths, it is where all of these, everything is super sensitive. And you can steer this incredibly large and powerful animal just from this bit that is connected to reins. And James is trying to help us see that there is a consistency, there is an attachment, there is an illustration there for us in our words. And then we talk about a rudder. I love, Amber and I just got off of a cruise, first cruise I've ever been on. It was awesome. This boat was humongous. It was 16 decks. There's a casino and a pool. I couldn't keep Amber out of the casino. I mean, there's everything on this boat, okay? So much. And all of it is steered. All of it is steered by, proportionately, the rudder is not even close. It's minuscule compared to the size of this boat, and yet it directs it everywhere it is going. There is a disproportionate amount of power that our tongues possess. The poet, Nur Unahar, says this about the tongue. Isn't it absolutely terrifying, shockingly amazing, how words, those tiny little sounds in this chemical-filled air, those shapeless, weird marks on stark white paper can make or break living, breathing people. Stab them at heart without a single weapon. Push them off their strong, firm feet. Take away the earth they used to stand on. Words, they're powerlessly powerful, so use yours well. We've all experienced it. Like, we've all had something said to us. That idea of like the earth that we're standing on being taken from us. Like feeling strong, confident, sure. And then all of a sudden, like, life just feels wobbly. Thinking about God, thinking about someone in one way, thinking of ourselves in one way. And then because of a word, bang, everything changes. Now, what I would say is that is a sobering reality, but it is, if the words are powerful for evil, they are also powerful for good. There's this truth that I haven't been able to escape, and over the course of my life, when ideas just kind of keep popping up over time, like over the course of like a few months, it's usually God trying to get my attention about something. And this is about a year ago now, that I kept hearing this idea of talking to your soul. Anybody ever heard of that? Just talking to your soul. Like you read about David doing it in Psalms, where he's like, bless the Lord, oh my soul. Where he's telling his soul, bless the Lord, soul. Bless his holy name, soul. Why are you downcast? Why is my spirit disquieted? Oh, soul, why are you downcast? He's talking to his soul, like he's calling his soul out. And I just kept hearing this idea pop up over and over and over again, and I was like, oh, man, well, I guess I better try it. So I started when I was getting discouraged, when I was starting to feel tired or exhausted, when I was angry, or like Amber and I were in the midst of conflict and I just like couldn't cool down, I just started talking to my soul. I just started speaking out loud. And it wasn't repeating the words of David in the Psalms. I started telling my soul, here's what's true about God. Soul, these are the promises that God has given me. So this is what is true of me right now in this moment. And you know what happened? It's crazy. I felt better. Because here is what is true, that yes, out of the heart, the mouth speaks. But words are powerful, and words can direct the heart. That a lot of times, our will, our thoughts, our feelings will follow our words. Just try it. Try it the next time you're down. Try it the next time you're tempted. Try it the next time you're in the midst of conflict. Try saying what is true out loud, and you won't want to. And what you will tell yourself is that, oh, this is stupid. This is dumb. This isn't going to work. This isn't going to help at all. These are just words. There's no way. And the enemy wants you to believe that they are not powerful, that your words have no power, that they are insignificant, that they are meaningless, that they cannot affect change in any way. And yet what James is saying here is that there is a disproportionate amount of power that exists with your tongue for either good or evil. Why wouldn't you use something that powerful for good? For the good of others and your own good. To grow, to create space for God's Spirit to help you mature and grow as a follower of Jesus. James talks about the power of the tongue, and then he talks about the danger of the tongue. So also the tongue is a small member, yet it boasts of great things. How great a forest is set ablaze by such a small fire. And the tongue is a fire, a world of unrighteousness. The tongue is set among our members, staining the whole body, setting on fire the entire course of life, set on fire by hell. I love how Pastor Peterson in the Message version puts these two verses right here. It only takes a spark. Remember, to set off a forest fire. A careless or wrongly placed word out of your mouth can do that. By our speech, we can ruin the world, turn harmony into chaos, throw mud on a reputation, send the whole world up in smoke, and go up in smoke with it. Smoke right from the pit of hell. James, it's like sobering. Where he's like, it's not even a word that is said with intention. It could just be a word that is said carelessly, on accident. And you can, set your life and someone else's life, just set it on fire. I think it's interesting that we would talk about this. This is kind of like, it kind of hits different after last summer and experiencing all the fires up on the West Plains. Some of you in here, like you know this even more intimately than anyone else. All we had to experience was displacement for a few days. Some of you lost your homes, burned down to the ground, lost everything that you loved, all because of a spark. Because of a spark. You drive up on the West Plains still, there's just devastation. Everything, all the trees are black. If you're out at family camp, you saw it. The landscape was just burned to the ground, or the trees were just standing. It looked like Chernobyl. I remember, like, weeks after the fire, I remember driving through with Evangeline, and she was like, oh, man, I can't wait till next summer when everything's back to the way it was. And I just said, kiddo, you're going to be taking your kids to family camp by the time everything is back to the way it was. That's how much devastation, that's how much our words can do. That's what James is trying to help us understand. It's like, think about that. Let the reality of that sober you up. Let that be just a cold splash of water on your face when you just let your lips go ungoverned. That is the type of danger. That is the type of damage that can be done by the tongue. Okay, so what do we do? All right, now that we're all freaked and then we're all taking a vow of silence after church today. We're like, nope, gone, not speaking again, no more. Because that feels like the quick fix, right? It's just, and there is something to say for talking less. I love the proverb that talks about those who talk a lot have a lifetime of consequences. It's always better to listen than it is to speak. I have yet to figure that out, but the quick fix is just silence, which isn't a bad thing, but it's not the solution. It is not the solution. So what is the solution? That's what James spends the rest of the text talking about. For every kind of beast and bird, of reptile and sea creature can be tamed and has been tamed by mankind. But no human being can tame the tongue. It is a restless evil full of deadly poison. With it we bless our Lord and Father, and with it we curse people who are made in the image and likeness of God. From the same mouth come blessing and cursing. My brothers, these things ought not to be so. Does a spring pour forth from the same opening both fresh and salt water? Can a fig tree, my brothers, bear olives, or a grapevine produce figs? Neither can a salt pond yield fresh water. So what is James telling us? What's the solution? There is no solution. No, I'm kidding. That's not what he's saying. That's what it sounds like, right? He's like, every animal on the planet Earth has been tamed by the tongue. Lions, tigers, bears, snakes, rats, whatever you can think of, spiders, birds, they've all been tamed. Lizards, they're all pets now, which make zero sense to me. It's like, no, I'm not even going to say that. Filter caught that one, babe. That is That's growth. That's 40-year-old Josh right there. Praise the Lord. We've tamed them all. Tamed them all. But we have yet to tame the tongue. No man can tame the tongue. It is a restless evil. What it sounds like James is saying is like, guys, this thing, you don't understand how much this says about you, what you love, what you desire, and how mature you are in the Lord. Man, a testimony of it is so powerful. It is powerful. Like it has an incredible, a disproportionate amount of power for both good and evil. And if you are not mindful of this, you can set your life and the lives of others on fire. But you really can't do anything about it. It's untamable. That's what it feels like he's saying, but he's not. You just got to watch the clues. You got to think of the illustrations. Because he goes on to say, this ought not to be so. Followers of Jesus, you should be different. Your lives should look different, and your words should sound different. And so what do? Think about the illustrations that James uses here. He talks about a fig tree and an olive tree. He's like, can olives come from a fig tree? Can figs come from an olive tree? He's like, can fresh water come out of saltwater spring? He's like, can this happen? Think about where he's pointing us. He's pointing us to the source. That's where he's drawing our attention. He's like, think about the source. Think about where your words come from. If you want olives, what should you do? Plant an olive tree. If you want figs, what do? Plant a fig tree. If you want to tame the tongue, what do? Transform your heart. This is a heart problem. This is not a words problem. The moment we try to make ourselves say better or different words, that's not the fix. Anybody watch the Andy Griffith Show? Anybody in here? Jan, you would love the Andy Griffith Show. I know you would. I didn't really watch it growing up, but sometimes it would be on, and I would watch it, because I don't know, it always felt good to watch it. But there was one episode I remember, and it really came in handy for this sermon. There's this episode where there's this couple, and they are just fighting in their house. They're saying all of these terrible things to each other, and they're just yelling and screaming and name-calling, and people are calling the police. Like, they called Andy to come and fix this problem and talk to this couple. And so he walks in and he sees them just yelling at each other. And he's like, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to fix it. You two are going to come down to the police station. You're going to sit in the police station. You're going to say nice things to each other until you learn to be nice to one another. And they're like, well, what if we don't want to do that? And he's like, then you're going to go to jail, which is awesome. It's like Texas justice. Let's go. So he gets this couple, brings them down to the police station, sits them in front of each other, and he's like, say something nice. And like the only thing that the husband can say is, good morning. Good morning. And then the only thing she can say is, good morning. And then he's like, well, what do you guys say? And he's like, good morning. And they just keep going back and forth again. And then they start saying nice things. But then here's what happens. They start being nice to each other, but then they go to the grocery store, and guess what they start doing? They start being mean to everyone else. They start saying mean things to everyone else, yelling at everyone else, being impatient with everyone else, complaining about everything, just going after everyone else. And so they stopped saying mean words to each other, but it didn't fix the problem. They went out into the world and were just mean to everyone else. That is what we will do if we just try to stop saying like the wrong words, to choose better words, to try to control our tongue somehow, because James is telling you a man or woman cannot do this. It is impossible for them because it is a heart issue. And the only way the tongue is tamed is through a transformed heart. And the only one who can transform your heart is God. through his Spirit. That's the only way. I wish I had a better solution for you. But the solution is, and often is, surrender. Because James uses this illustration of a bit and a rudder to compare it to the tongue. The bit is controlled by someone. Someone has their hands on those reins. A rudder is steered by someone. Someone has their hands on that steering wheel. And so the call, the invitation from James is to take your hands off the reins, to take your hands off the steering wheel, and to hand them over to God. And so here's the disciplines that I want to challenge you with this week. There's three things. Three things that I want, because if words are the problem, words can also be a part of the solution. If words are the problem, they can also be a part of the solution. Because anytime we practice spiritual disciplines, and a spiritual discipline can be the words that we choose to say, the intentionality we have in our speech. So for us this week, here's what I want to challenge you to say. Every day. Number one, I want you to say what is true about God. I want you to take time. I want you to find text. I want you to find scripture. And I want you to say out loud with your mouth what is true about God. You can talk directly to your soul. I'm telling you, it's awesome. Number two, what has God promised you? I want you to say out loud what God has promised you. And the last one, what God has said is true of you. What has God said about you? Because for us, it's always surrender. It's like the solution always looks and feels a little counterintuitive. So really what James is saying, he's just like, hey, we got a huge problem here. It's our tongue. It is a restless evil. But the solution is not paying attention to what you say. The solution is not trying to stop saying these things, although you can do that. It's not like you just go ungoverned. You can pay attention to what you say, and there should be a degree of self-control that exists. But remember, self-control is a fruit of the Spirit. It's not a fruit of your own strength. It's a fruit of God's Spirit at work within you. And so for us as followers of Jesus, we have to be disciplined about how we talk. And it's not about just what we don't say, but it's what we choose to say every day.